Welcome to the Voices of Otolaryngology podcast series, where we spotlight diverse perspective and insights within the field of otolaryngology. I'm your host, Rahul Shah. In this episode, I talk with Academy Past President Dr. Gavin Setzen to learn more about his practice's unique model of care at Albany ENT Allergy Services in New York. We discuss the pearls and opportunities for practice success, as well as how the Academy plays a role in all of those stages of one's career. Now, let's jump right in. Dr. Setzen, thank you for inviting me to Albany ENT and Allergy Services. What an honor to be here. We have a podcast that we call Voices of Otolaryngology. When I think of that, you perhaps might be the loudest voice. Where did your passion with the Academy start?
Thank you, Dr. Shah, and privilege and a pleasure to have you visiting us today and for this opportunity. I began my journey as a foreign grad, started a general surgery residency in New York City, transitioned to Albany where I completed my ENT residency, and as a PGY2, became involved in the Academy, developed a love for the non-clinical side of medicine and otolaryngology. And literally, since early residency days, have maintained a tremendous involvement in the Academy. And I think, like anything else that one loves, enjoys, and is passionate about, it's the collaboration amongst the 12,000 otolaryngologists in our field, and the joy of being able to not only provide the clinical care, but organized medicine, the organized side of otolaryngology and the Academy, and what the Academy brings to advocacy, education, the membership benefits, just a series and a host of opportunities that I would never have had otherwise. So while the clinical side of practice is so rewarding, for me, an equally important counterbalance was my involvement in the Academy, local, regional, state participation in a variety of medical and allied organizations. And through that, the subspecialty work, the Intersocietal Accreditation Commission and CT imaging, and all the different pathways that the Academy has led me to, which have resulted in my involvement and commitment to the specialty over many years at this point.
Yeah, we're going to be all over the place in this podcast, so I appreciate you dancing a little bit with me.
Of course.
I'm sitting in one of the most amazing practices I frankly have ever been in, and I believe this is the largest freestanding otolaryngology office building or office site in the country. Can you tell them where I'm privileged to be sitting? Describe it for those who can't see it. And I believe you're an open book. And can I say you probably have an open invitation to any member that wants to visit you?
Absolutely. We would welcome the opportunity. And so we're in a 54,000 square foot facility that is ENT only, essentially. We're a practice with 10 physicians and 20 PAs. And so on any given day, there's a significant volume of patients coming into the practice. And what's interesting is, we leverage every vertical ancillary opportunity with a diverse allergy immunotherapy practice, on-site 64-slice CT imaging, conventional imaging. We do CT angios, we do neck CTs with contrast. Speech and swallowing, the audiovestibular side of the practice. There's an ambulatory surgery center upstairs. And so any and all of the traditional ancillary services, but at the same time, we consider the real estate, which we own, another ancillary. The ASC is another ancillary. And these are just all levers that help to sustain the viability of the practice and enable our growth. So we have 51 examination rooms. We have a walk-in ENT-only urgent care, and that facilitates new patient acquisition, keeps the volume up, and supports all the different ancillaries. And our ability to grow the practice in collaboration with a team-based concept, working with the APPs, who have been able to really leverage these opportunities to improve access to the practice.
What impresses me most about the trajectory of your career is you actually created a lever. And I want you to pause and think about that. We talk about the levers, we talk about ancillaries. I have never seen, even through my hospital administration, a unique specialty specific urgent care for otolaryngology. I've heard about it in orthopedics. I was stunned by that. So perhaps your biggest legacy for our specialty might be creating a lever. Can you talk maybe a minute or two about the fascinating model or of the urgent care, how you're looking at it from a publication perspective on value based care? Please go ahead, Dr. Setzen.
Thank you. So in 2019, we moved into this new facility, and built into the facility is an ENT only ambulatory walk-in clinic. The advantage of that is we did not go through the accreditation process for an independent freestanding walk-in center. When a patient walks into our urgent care, and that could be 40 to 70 patients a day, the importance of that is when they back up into clinic, they are just a part of the regular workflow. And so from an accreditation standpoint and insurance standpoint, it's no different than any other patient coming into our office. What we feel is important is the ability to increase access. And at the same time, these are new patients that have been acquired by the practice. And we've looked at, for example, the last 50,000 patients and what over time the value add, the value of a new patient to the practice. And depending on the patient and the journey, that could be $1,100 through $40,000, depending on what the patient comes in for and what their trajectory looks like. So for us, it was an incredible opportunity to improve access, new patient acquisition, and the value of each new patient. So we're okay that that patient may come in with an earache, be treated for an otitis media, but needs an audiogram down the line and possibly a hearing aid. Who comes in with maxillary sinusitis, turns out this is their fourth infection. They need an allergy workup, may land up on immunotherapy, may get a sinus CT and endoscopic sinus surgery, for example. So every patient has a different trajectory, but it's the new patient acquisition opportunity that is so important in that scenario.
Thank you, Dr. Setzen, for explaining your absolutely unique concept of an urgent care. Let me push back and imagine I'm a private practitioner. Sir, I can't keep open 24 hours. How does your urgent care work? Just very briefly, are you open 24 hours, 7 days a week?
Excellent question, and that's something we've been asked over time. The other advantage of the fact that we're not an independent, accredited, freestanding urgent care is we can control the volume and the hours. So right now we're open from 8:30 to 3 by design, and so this does not overly stress the staff. It's APP run, physician overseen, in a team-based, collaborative, physician-led scenario. And so we can turn on or off the volume. We have an opportunity for a patient to come to the urgent care, and if there's a backup or a wait, they will register, come back half an hour and a half later if need be. But we will make sure that the volume is manageable and that the patients get taken care of appropriately. So we don't run nights and we don't run weekends. And we've done the math in terms of potential return on investment. We've looked at extended office hours and things like that. And so instead of cannibalizing an existing schedule to stay open an hour longer or open an hour earlier, we find that the urgent care fills that gap and that the majority of those patients are new patients to the practice, which really is the goal, new patient acquisition.
One thing that's impressed me about your practice, spending time with you, is your intentional growth and what you say no to. So you have 20 APPs. That didn't happen overnight. You went from 6 to 20 over 4 years. Can you talk about APPs with the otolaryngologist as the captain of the team in team-based care?
Absolutely. And I think when one considers many of the different factors and challenges in healthcare today, the workforce issues, burnout, declining reimbursement, the fact that we have a certain number of hours in the day to perform the services that we do, medical inflation, and so on, we have to look at the different levers. And so while we are maxed out on every reasonable ancillary available in our field, including real estate and ASC, the natural growth opportunity was leveraging APPs. And to your point, Dr. Shah, this is a team-based collaborative opportunity, physician-led. And so we grew the APP community in our practice to 20, and that has provided us extraordinarily significant improvement with respect to access, to the point that APPs are booking 4 to 6 weeks out. The surgeons in the practice, 10 physicians, are booking further out, and yet there's tremendous need for access still with 30 providers. So we have a significant onboarding process, which could take up to 6 months. The APPs are very well trained. They have a significant oversight, and they do the Academy PA training course. They go to the AAOA basic program and learn allergy, which is a big part of our practice. So we provide the education, the oversight, the credentialing, and make sure that they are compliant with billing and all the other aspects to ensuring that they are providing evidence-based quality care with increased access in a team-based environment. And as an additional ancillary, an additional lever, properly managed with their own individual schedules, they provide significant revenue to the practice, which helps us to continue to grow the model.
I was very impressed touring the facility. You obviously hear it with my profound enthusiasm and excitement this morning. One of the neatest things was looking at the CT scan. But what was more impressive is the care model. And you told me that somebody could drive an hour here, but they get everything done in the day. Can you talk a little bit about how, when you talk about ancillaries, it's not just driving revenue, it's putting the patient in the center. A patient, go ahead and walk them through a CRS patient or a patient in your practice, how they can really have everything done, perhaps in 1 or 2 visits.
Certainly. And we live in an environment where care is fragmented. There are less providers of different services in the community. For example, somebody who is referred to our practice for chronic rhinosinusitis, for example, we will have information and referral materials on that patient so that, if appropriate, based on guidelines and other evidence-based recommendations for care, that patient may come in for an initial consult, have been pre-certed for a sinus CT, have a consult and a nasal endoscopy with a review of the CT within an hour's time. And so one can determine a definitive treatment plan. If they require skin testing and are immunotherapy bound, that would be a secondary appointment. We don't do that on the same day, but really you can make a significant contribution to their diagnostic therapeutic journey at the first visit, having concluded most, if not all, of the diagnostics at the time, including audiology and so on, the ability to add on for speech and swallowing evaluations and so on. So it's a very efficient opportunity. And from, with respect to patient-centered care, the patient journey is less complicated, less co-pays, less visits, less time out of work. The referring physicians prefer that and like that optionality, as do the employers, less time out of work. So it becomes very important for the patient.
Appreciate that, Dr. Setzen. I want people to understand, and what you drive home is success is not an accident. You came out of residency and you joined as senior partner, and you started in a 1,500 square foot practice. You didn't get to 54,000 square feet overnight with 9 other associates. Can you talk about some of the intentionality and growth, lessons learned? Just a little bit. It's not an accident. I mean, you've been at this 27 years, maybe 3
Correct.
decades, if I can do my math.
Correct. Yes. Thank you. And, upon reflection, it has been a great journey. But I have to say that I had an excellent mentor coming out of residency. The person I joined was a past president of the AAOA. He was a single, solo, independent practitioner. And I enjoyed the allergy and other components, rhinology and so on. And so took over his practice and grew that over time. But I had mentors throughout my career, and my involvement in the academy, in particular, helped foster the decisions made in terms of growth, the opportunities, the exposure to world leaders in our field, being able to see what others were doing, the education, training, advocacy, and what I've learned from colleagues over time helped develop the mindset to facilitate the growth that we have experienced here. Consistent with patient-centered care, evidence-based medicine. And I think the other thing I would say is culture is very important. Culture within the practice. And, our philosophy is team-based collaborative care, mutual respect, patient-centered, patient first. And that's really allowed us to retain staff. We have PAs who were our original PAs in the practice, 15, 18 years tenure. Our most recent practice administrator had been with the practice 40 years. And so I think you have to treat people with respect, and in a team-based environment, success will follow. If you do the right thing, you treat people well, and you're patient-centered, the rest will follow. I think I asked a lot of questions. I learned a lot from colleagues. We stumbled along the way. We learned from those mistakes. This is our 4th iteration in this practice. And each informed decision maybe came from a bad decision previously, or something that I'd learned from somebody else along the way. And that's the beauty of our field. We're a small field. It's a family. And the collaborative nature of that, going to meetings, going to the ODO Forum, the annual Academy meeting, the Specialty Society meetings, any and all of these opportunities have really allowed us to grow, consolidated my view of how we can provide the best care. And what's maybe also a little unusual, and because of my involvement in the Academy, we were involved with many other practices, academia. We're completing our 21st clinical trial. We collaborate with the residents at Albany Medical Center. We're involved in clinical research. So because one is in an independent private practice does not limit opportunities. I would encourage you to reach out to colleagues, reach out to the academy, reach out to your specialty societies. There are so many opportunities for education, growth, and professional satisfaction at the end of the day. And like I might have mentioned earlier, in addition to the joy that comes from clinical practice, all of the rest of this, including the management side and dyad leadership in healthcare, I think is really made for a very fulfilling career.
Just a couple more questions. You've already been very generous with your time, and I bet you I've hurt your productivity this week, but I appreciate it. Perhaps this podcast should be subtitled "Success is Not an Accident," because my understanding is your practice was recently announced as one of the best places to work in Albany. You have, I believe, 100 to 200 employees walking around. The culture here is thick, and the culture is excellence, quality, safety, and pride. What's your secret to a best place to work? And correct me if I'm wrong, you've won this before.
Yes. So we're particularly proud of that because surveys, we have 160 employees, are sent anonymously by the Capital Region Business Review, which is a national syndicated publication. And each employee is surveyed, and we were delighted to win this for a second year in a row. And I think it speaks to the culture. We make sure that people are treated respectfully, that it's a collaborative, team-based approach. We make sure that people not only are patted on the back and recognized for their quality, service, dedication, and patient care, but they're properly remunerated as well. And we constantly do wage analyses. We make sure that we have a very significant benefits package, 401k, access to services, including mental health services. If you have an accounting issue or financial difficulties, we will provide resources to help staff manage those issues, whether it's maternity leave, paternity leave, PTO. There's so much that goes into it. And when you take care of your staff, they take care of you, but most importantly, it manifests in the patient experience. And that is a significant part of the patient journey, the patient outcome, and the ability to ensure good quality care. And that improves outcomes. So in my opinion, it's an overall investment. We're not just investing in technology in the practice, we're investing in our personnel.
Thank you. I promised you 2 more questions. I could talk to you forever, but I'm very cognizant of your time. Just 2 quick questions. You mentioned mentors. You're one of my mentors, and you're a mentor to many of us in this field. And I want to acknowledge that. And a mentor doesn't have to be very senior to you. I don't know how old you are. Maybe we're the same age, but we appreciate you. Could you shout out one of your mentors or 1 or 2 of your mentors? It'd be great that we respect and recognize those whose shoulders you stand on.
I appreciate that very much. One of the person who gave me the opportunity, Dr. Stephen Parnes, the former chair in Albany, in my interview asked me why I should be the first time the program has ever hired a foreign grad. And he took a chance on me. One of my proudest moments was winning Employee of the Month at Albany Medical Center, which has only been won by a physician once in its history. And so those memories, residency, Dr. Parnes, Dr. Peter Coltai, those are people that helped shape my career. Dr. Jim Delaney was probably one of the first people to get me significantly involved in the academy, probably as a PGY4 resident and during the CPOP era, when specialty unity was an issue and conversations about the registry were evolving. And he's been one of my most ardent supporters and best friends through this journey, and as a mentor. Last but not least, my brother Michael Setzen, who is a well-known rhinologist and a practitioner in our field. So there are so many friends, mentors, colleagues, people I look up to. The friendships, the connectivity are really significant in our field. I don't know that occurs in many other fields, particularly surgical. So my success comes from the things I've learned from all of these others, and there are dozens more that I could mention.
Certainly, I so appreciate the shout out to our members and our mentors. You mentioned Dr. Parnes, Dr. Coltai, and Dr. Delaney, mentors to all of us. So thank you. I think it's important we always reflect on those who've created a legacy ahead of us. You and I share a very special bond in that we have older siblings who are otolaryngologists, and they probably think we have it easy, Gavin, because we follow in their footsteps, but It is certainly in the family how otolaryngology runs. 2 more fun questions, if I may.
Of course.
All right. So not everybody knows, but you hired me. I work for you. You were on the search committee. So what advice do you give me? I work for you.
Thank you. Well, I think...
And you were on the search committee. You might want to explain that to people, what I mean by that.
Certainly. So, when one considers that there have only been, I believe, three prior EVP CEOs of our academy, this is probably one of the most three or four. I'm drawing a blank right now, but this is one of the most profoundly important roles in our academy. And so there was a very formal, dedicated search process to find a replacement for Dr. Jim Delaney. Those are very big shoes to fill, to be sure. There were a number of very qualified candidates, and through a very complex, laborious selection process, you were the natural choice as the person who could take over from Dr. Delaney and lead us into a very bright and positive future as an academy and as a field of otolaryngology. The commitment, the responsibility to look after our field and the 12,000 plus otolaryngologists that are under your purview is an awesome responsibility. And it was unequivocal that you have the skill set, the personality, and the requisite skills to lead us into the future. And so I'm extraordinarily confident about the future direction of the academy and the opportunities that abound for otolaryngologists, despite some of the challenges. And I really, we talked about the importance of advocacy. Only the academy can provide the advocacy necessary for 12,000 otolaryngologists. Really important that we have specialty unity, that while we collaborate closely with every subspecialty, the unity required to get us through issues of scope of practice, reimbursement, and the multiple challenges in an era of consolidation, private equity, you name it. There are many challenges. I am confident that you will lead us through those.
And thank you on behalf of the Academy for serving on that search. It took, 6 to 9 months, but it was a lot of work. I'm glad I got hired. And so let us know how we can do better as an Academy. Final thought, we found out last evening we share another passion of F1 racing. I'm not going to why don't I do this? Let's have some real fun, Gavin, okay? You only get to choose one. Who's your favorite race team? It's on the record. It's going to be on the podcast.
Red Bull, Max Verstappen.
Oh, boy.
Formula One is a wonderful sport. Yeah.
Red Bull.
How about you?
Oh, gosh, you threw it back. Touche. I love Red Bull's rise, but I also love McLaren. And I think we talked about our shared appreciation of the scientific approach to competitiveness.
Absolutely.
And perhaps that's a great way to end. I'm going to let you conclude, but I think your career, when I think about it, it's scientific, it's methodical, and it's successful. Any final words? And then I'm going to pan over to, we talk about diet leadership. I'm going to surprise Drew Franklin. We're going to put him on the camera just to say hi. But Gavin, any final thoughts?
So, to your point, the speed efficiency of Formula One, I often think about, there's that CMS diagram about provision of care and reimbursement.
You mean spinning your wheels over and over?
That's it. And it looks like a racetrack. And I think to myself, there's so many better ways of doing this. And we've learned a lot along the way. I love the field. I love the academy. I love the connectivity and the people and the patients. It's a rich field in so many ways. I think there are great opportunities that abound for all of us. I look forward to continued collaboration and welcome anyone to reach out with questions, visit our practice at any time. And I thank you for your leadership and the opportunity. We really appreciate you visiting with us today. That means a lot.
Would you be so kind? And if you don't, I'll cut this out, but would you provide your email? I know
Absolutely.
You do recruitment dinners, and that's not about you recruiting 60 otolaryngologists. It's about educating our field. Perhaps a member could reach out to you.
Certainly. And residents and fellows, those have been very successful with great information. My email address is gsetzen, GSETZEN, at ALBANYENT.com.
Thank you very much. We're going to do a teaser for one of our other podcasts. I'm going to put Drew Franklin on here, and Drew's outstanding when we talk about dyad leadership. Drew, I've surprised him today. Do you want to introduce yourself, give us a minute teaser, and then we'll get you on another podcast when you come down to Alexandria for the Oto Forum.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much. We're very happy to be working with Albany ENT for the last few years and taking a more active role more recently, and super excited about coming down to Alexandria to talk to you more about some of the Business of Medicine series in this podcast. Thanks so much.
So dyad leadership works?
It does. The physician governance coupled with administrative lay leadership works super well.
Yeah, I've been so impressed, Drew, and I know really you have a lot to credit here when you look at KPIs and ways to do operational efficiency. How about you give me one of your favorite KPIs, then I'll be off.
I like looking at endoscopy per visit because it allows us to look at standard deviations across providers, our 30, 20 APPs and 10 doctors, and being able to look at that measure and be able to optimize when you're looking at folks who are not billing to the top of their pedigree.
I love that. We might title your podcast Endoscopy Per Visit. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you for hosting me.